It all began with pride. Not the pride of a job well done, but the arrogant pride that claims ownership of what is not theirs. The kind that waves a foreign flag and walks into your home as if it still holds the right to give orders. General Pierre Dubois didn't knock when he arrived at the presidential palace in Ouagadougou. He barged in at exactly 9:47 a.m. The red dust of the Sahel still clung to his boots. His expression was cold, his eyes full of superiority. He came from Paris not to negotiate, but to issue a warning. It wasn't a request. It was a threat veiled in diplomacy. President Ibrahim waited in the meeting room, calm, seated, hands folded on the table. Outside, children played in the courtyard. Inside, something historic was about to unfold. Dubois didn't sit. He walked straight to the table and threw down a tablet. On the screen, satellite images. "These Chinese machines operating on your uranium sites," he said harshly, "violate the agreement your country signed with France in 1961. Didn't he flinch?" He replied softly. "General Dubois, perhaps we should discuss this professionally." But Dubois had no intention of being professional. He began pacing not from nerves, but from the habit of dominance. "Let me be clear," he said. "Mali thought it could be independent. Look what happened. Copes, violence, chaos. That's what happens when African nations forget who their real partners are." He pointed again to the screen. "Your uranium powers? Our nuclear plants. Your gold sits in our banks. It's been that way for 150 years, and it will remain so." Then came the words that would shake Africa. "Africa is ours, Mr. President. It always has been, and it always will be." He spoke like a conqueror. With disdain, he added, "Wave your little flags, sing your anthems, preach about freedom, but we control the banks, the roads, the resources beneath your soil. Without France, you are nothing." The room fell silent. Only children's laughter echoed faintly from outside. But inside, history shifted. What Dubois didn't see had. Small red light blinked behind the African Union flag. The meeting was being discreetly recorded, and soon the world would hear it. Didn't he shout? He just smiled, a calm, confident smile that unsettled Dubois. "Thank you," said softly. "Thank you." Dubois frowned. Yes, because for the first time in a long time, a French official has spoken the truth. Not development lies or fake partnerships. It's just the raw colonial truth France has hidden behind kind words. Stood and pulled out a thick file. He opened it on the table, revealing documents. "For years I wondered if France saw us as equals. These documents prove that through the CFA franc system, Burkina Faso sends 485 million euros annually to the French treasury. And we pay over 300% markup for weapons bought from your companies." Dubois stood frozen. The power had shifted. That meeting wasn't just a confrontation. It was a turning point. That night, alone in his office, played the recording again 20 minutes of colonial contempt. Then he picked up the secure line. "President Goïta," he said to Mali's leader, "you need to hear this." By dawn, Africa was already awakening. Phone calls began early. "If this is how they see us," said the Nigerian president, "then we must respond not as isolated states, but as a continent." From Dakar to N'Djamena, Africa's leaders were united. It was time to act together. At 2 p.m. West African time, 6 African presidents appeared on live television. No long speeches. No begging. Just the truth. "Today," announced Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Chad, the Central African Republic, and Senegal are withdrawing from the CFA franc and ending all military agreements with France. Then live. The recording of Dubois played. Every insult. Every colonial echo. Every word. In Paris, panic erupted. "We're losing 180 billion euros in contracts," shouted the finance minister. "We've lost uranium and gold access," added the defense minister. 8 more African countries may leave the CFA zone, warned the foreign minister. President Macron lost his composure. "How did one recording cause all this?" his advisor replied quietly. "Because Dubois said out loud what we've always believed in silence." 3 days later, Dubois faced a virtual meeting. 12 African presidents stared at him through the screen. Behind them, a wall of African flags, a wall of history, and a promise. Africa will no longer bow. 6 months later, at the UN General Assembly, President took the stage. A French general once told me, "Africa belongs to France. Today, I say it clearly, Africa belongs to Africans." The room erupted. 54 African flags rose as one. A 9-minute standing ovation. Not for Burkina Faso. But for the soul of a continent. As European delegates sat in silence, the message rang clear. France had lost its grip, and now it would have to ask for a seat at the table.